Water that slips and slides? Stay tuned and all will be revealed. Well, good morning everyone and welcome to Piccadilly Eastway. Now, it's been quite a while since I've done any form of layout or modelling or building on the layout as such. I think the last thing I made was that bridge and then put the line in and then ballast, and that was before Christmas. I'm pretty sure of that. But today I'm going to start thinking about the river, or the river bed should say, and I'll build the river on the top of it at a later date. Now, you may have already realised there are some elephants in the room. Well, first of all, I've got these beams running across, and secondly, you've probably realised there is a traverser running underneath there, and that traverser goes across like that. So if I put a river over the top, I'm going to effectively seal off that traverser and not be able to get to it, and it's going to be incredibly difficult to line up the tracks, as you can see just there. But I've got a plan. Now, what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to remove these by cutting them off at these 4 points here, obviously. And then I'm going to create a housing joint. So it's like take a slot out of it, and then either these pieces or a new piece will then just literally slot in, so that comes down to level with that. So it'll all be nice and flush. And I'm going to put in maybe one across there, obviously one around here, and that one will probably be more or less the same place as well. But you're thinking, John, that doesn't solve the problem of being able to get to the traverser underneath. Well, I'm going to make this river movable. So effectively it is a little bit like a traverser, but not quite. I am going to use draw runners. So the draw runners will be sitting onto these pieces that go that way, obviously, and then the riverbed will be cut to shape, sort of that sort of shape, like that. Now, you may have already realised what I'm going to be thinking. So when I pull that forward, that will then go into this area down here. Now, there is another problem as well, and you may have realised there's a beam running underneath there. You see it with the components on it, this one. Now, looking at it, it's screwed up into this block there and also there. Now, I can't get a screwdriver in there, even the little stubby. I can't get it in. So what I'm hoping to do is, if I undo these screws here and corresponding screws over there, hopefully it kind of should drop out. Right, so that's that piece out now, and there it is just there. Now, as I said before, the reason for taking that piece out was to create space for this river section to come in and under, and it'll only be under there when, well, it won't be there when I'm moving trains on this track. It'll only be when I need to get stuff out on that mini traverser just there. So, you know, that will be the main reason. So I'm almost ready to cut this off, but the problem being is that the potential is the whole thing could start to collapse, and I don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is use the piece that I've just removed and cut it into sections this high, and then I can attach it sideways into this beam here, about there, and the same at this end, just underneath there. And then the piece that's going acrossways like that can then be screwed to the back end of it, and then through the channel, as I said, through here. And there we go, there's the first one in. And so you can see now a draw runner will go nicely onto that. And so I want another one around about this area, and another one around about there. I mean, that one probably only needs to go from there underneath, to be honest with you, and I can cut that off, this piece around about there. That should be absolutely fine. And as you can see, I've attached it to this block here, and that block attaches to there, so the structure is still there, and that's nice and sound. It shouldn't go anywhere because it's still attached to that beam across there, so it should be absolutely fine. And just in case you wondered how much gap I've got underneath this section, take this piece and put it under, I've got that much. And if the river comes to around about here and then slides back out, that should be absolutely fine. And there probably will have to be a bank going down there, and probably similarly when I put this big piece back in, which is just over there at the moment. Okay, I will carry on, and I'll see how much I can get done, and I'll show you shortly. Right, so there it is. That's the start of it. Now, the idea is then this will then slide into this area back here like that, which will then give me access to the portal or the traverser underneath, and then I can still do that, and there's plenty of room to line up tracks. Right, there we go then. This is a fair few days after the last clip. And if you remember a few seconds ago, you just saw a bare board sitting on the rafters once they'd been housed in. Now, underneath here, you will see there is a 3D printed handle, which I've fitted. And that means that the whole of that can slide back, giving access to this area around here. And I've got plenty of space to get in there and do what I need to do. Yes, this beam is quite thick, but it is quite structural, so I don't really want to mess about with that. But I should be all right in moving the trains around. I can certainly see where the lines line up from this section underneath to the traverser down here, so that shouldn't be a problem. So that's worked out quite nicely, and as you can see, that slides very nicely indeed, and access is from underneath the layout just down there. Now, you'll also notice, if I just pull that back a little bit, that there are bits added in. Now, that's just layers of 2mm card to build up the levels, and the reason for that is because this board was scraps, and I didn't really want to go out and buy a new board and create more scraps. So I'd end up with lots of scraps hanging about and not have any jobs for them. So I'd rather use up the bits I can and then buy new in the future if need be. So that's the reason for all these extra bits put in, and I've got the shape I want. There is board underneath, so it's all nicely sort of leveled up and secure, if you like, so it's not just going to drop off. Now, you'll also notice these cut-out sections here, and that is because there are structures underneath the layout in these areas which I needed to cut out the board to get the river to come as far back as you can see it there. Without that, it would probably only go to about there, which really wouldn't have been anywhere near enough to be able to get access to the traverser below. It has, I've also gone round and put this rim, if you like. This bit is lengths of 3D printed strip, 5mm high by 2mm wide, and then coming around the back here is card, and there's one of the bits there. So you can see that's a decent thickness, and it is quite a sturdy card, as you can probably hear from that. And all the sections have been hot glued on with the glue gun. Okay, purely because that's going to seal up and make it a little bit more watertight. And then you can probably tell it's quite shiny at the moment, and that's because I've just given it a generous coat with matte varnish. and that's the stuff I use there. Okay, top and bottom, so it should be nice and stable. You will also realise that the depth from the boards down to the water isn't as much as I'd like it to be, and that's dictated to by the height of the structure of the wood underneath. There's not a lot I can do about that, but if somebody wanted to run round on a little rowing boat, there'd certainly be enough space for them to get through there. The ship is going about here, and it's actually the Mayflower, and it works out it's not actually that big. So if I'm remembering correctly, it's only probably what 30 centimeters, just around about a foot. So it's not very big, and it will fit into that area quite nicely too. So that should be absolutely fine. I'm just debating whether to put it into the water, in other words, cut the bottom of it off so it sits in the water, or to make a structure so it sits out of the water, but it's kind of in the water at the same time, if that makes any sense. But yeah, it should be absolutely fine. As I said, the height of this is about 5 mil. So, you know, I'm not going to be asked, you don't need any more resin than that, to be honest, in this particular situation. Otherwise, it takes up height just there to the top, and I don't really want to do that. Now, you will see there is a big gap here, and obviously I can't have river in these areas where the board needs to cut out and go around the posts, if you like. So there will be a bank that comes down here and just sits ever so slightly above. So I'm going to 3D print parts to go down there, and they'll be fixed, glued and screwed to this area here. And then on this side, the bank will be glued and screwed, well, glued certainly, to the actual moving section. So it should work out quite nicely. There's going to be some big walls coming up here, which is obviously part of the station structure, and there'll be obviously the Mayflower, so there needs to be access paths and steps and all sorts of bits and bobs like that, but it's coming along. Anyway, I'm going to now let this dry and then get it painted, and I'll show you the next bit shortly. Okay, and there it is. That is about as much as I am going to do for this video, and you can see what a transformation that has been. Nothing like it was on the previous clip, as you can see. But anyway, the proof is in the pudding, so well, let's have a look. Will the river slide across? Like a dream. There we go. That's as far as it's going to go, and you can see there is plenty of space to get my hand in there to sort out the traverser and the locomotives below. And so when I push it back, it closes the gap up very, very nicely. And if you didn't know that that river slid across, you probably wouldn't realise that it slid across. So, you know, I'm really pleased about that. Now, this bridge, as you can may remember, or viaduct, was the one I had on Piccadilly sidings, for those of you who remember that. And you may also remember that I went ahead and cut out every single brick. So it goes all the way across here, all in the arches around there. And I stuck them on individually. It took forever. And then I put a very wet, plastery, fillery type mix over the top, and just, you know, created the weather effects. Now, in one sense, I'd like to use it, but there's a bigger problem. This side wasn't done because it was facing the back of the layout, and it was very close to the back scene. So I decided not to bother. I can't think why. But, you know, it might be easier just to make another one from scratch and use the Cricut machine with the scoring tool on plasticard, and then see how we get on with making a brick pattern that way. I've never done that before, but you know, it'd be interesting to see how the Cricut machine actually does. There will be a road on the top, and that will feed the Heritage Station and the mainline station below. So there'll be a road in this area here. How that's all going to work out at the moment, I'm not entirely sure. I'm still thinking about it. And obviously the road will come out over here, over the tracks. There will be either a girder bridge here, or maybe even another arch. I'm not totally sure at the moment. Maybe even a slightly curved bridge, so it goes out perpendicular to the tracks. I don't know at the moment. The grey at the back here, this piece of board represents what could be a warehouse or something like that. Quite a tall building, with the idea that the bridge and this building will be fairly close together with a tiny gap. So when the trains go through the bridge, it will be effectively going into a tunnel, so that the trains will go under that building, and there'll be something else very similar type of thing over the other side. So the trains are quite secluded when they come around this very quite tight curve. I do want to try and get as much of that out of the way, same with the other end, as much as possible. So, but obviously leave access around the outsides just in case there's a derailment or a problem of some description, maybe with lift out sections, maybe with an open slot running around the back, so I can get in there and sort out any issues. I'm not totally sure at the moment. As I said, the heritage station here, so this piece of card represents the side wall for that, and obviously there will be a lower path down here to this type of dock area. Mayflower is sitting there, and you can see, if you can see the Revell box in the far corner there, you can see that Mayflower is slightly undersized at 1/83, but quite frankly, with 00 being 1/76, I'm really not going to worry about it. It's close enough. I think the difference would probably only be about maximum 5mm, and you know, it's not much to think about, to be honest, so I'm really not going to worry about that. The bridge to your left here has had quite a severe cut down, and I actually think it looks a little bit more silly now. There are bridges that are quite low in the water. They're more of the just to sort of jump a train across, to be honest, but I think I'm more inclined to make more of an arch type structure, still a girder bridge but with a big arch in it, and then maybe big girder arches down both sides. There will be obviously a bridge coming in this way, and it'll probably be that type of thing. I quite like the idea of having an arch viaduct running not the full length of the layout, but certainly going from one end through to the other end, so that you can have all the Heritage One stock running along there and the old EMU and that type of thing. That, you know, I think that would be quite nice to see all that. And there'll be either one platform station or maybe even a 2 platform station, certainly a runaround. And I'm thinking about having that effectively going off the far end, maybe even with a little turntable. I don't know at the moment. That might be adding too much, but again, it's all these ideas buzzing around in my head. They just need to be clarified. But to get to this stage and to see this scene actually starting to come together is a major step forward, as you can appreciate. I mean, at the beginning of the video, it was literally a wooden frame with a massive hole in the middle, and you could see right through to the underside of the layout. And you know, I think we've certainly turned a corner with this. So my next stage is to get this papier-mâchéd, and then obviously painted, and then flocked, static grass, all that type of stuff, trees, foliage, all that sort of stuff. And I think even doing that, then the layout will start to take on yet another stage forward, and then it's deciding what to do with that bridge. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you again very, very soon here on Piccadilly Eastway. You take care of yourself, and bye for now.